Get him off my property. He's dangerous." The woman's scream echoed across my ranch before the sheriff's SUV even stopped. 2 deputies stepped out with their hands close to their belts while 3 HOA board members stood behind the woman, nodding like they already knew I was guilty. I stayed where I was. My boots were covered in dirt from fixing a broken fence. I looked at the deputies and quietly asked, before anyone puts cuffs on me, "Can one of you tell me how I became the trespasser on land my family has owned for almost 80 years?" Nobody answered. The woman folded her arms and pointed right at me. "He's lying. This ranch belongs to the HOA now. We have every right to be here." One deputy frowned. Did you say the HOA owns this ranch?" "Not yet," she said with a smug smile. "But it will. He's blocking community development." I almost laughed, but something felt wrong. My ranch covered 1,500 acres. It had cattle, horses, lakes, forests, and miles of private trails. The nearest HOA neighborhood ended almost 2 miles from my front gate. They had no reason to be anywhere near my land. Yet there they were. I looked past the deputies and noticed fresh tire tracks leading deep into my property. They weren't there that morning. Someone had driven far beyond my locked gate. That made my stomach tighten, because only one place mattered that much: the old storage ban. Nobody had used it in years except me. The deputies asked everyone to stay calm while they checked our IDs. Karen kept talking over everyone. He threatened us. He chased us. He doesn't want people to know what he's hiding. I looked her straight in the eyes. "You've never been inside my ranch before today. So how would you know where the old barn is?" For the first time, she froze, only for a second. Then she smiled again. "I don't know what you're talking about." But I had already seen the mud on her expensive white shoes. That mud only came from one place on my ranch, the creek behind the old barn. She had been there, without permission, without any reason. One deputy noticed me staring at her shoes. "You see something?" he asked. "I do," I said quietly. "And if I'm right, this isn't about trespassing anymore." Karen's confident smile slowly disappeared. One of the HOA board members suddenly whispered, "We should leave. Right now." Karen shot him an angry look. "No," she snapped. "He has nothing." I reached into my jacket pocket, not for a weapon, for a small metal key, the only key that could open the locked filing room hidden beneath the old barn. And the moment I pulled it out, Karen's face turned completely white. The guilty always panic before the truth even speaks. Karen's eyes stayed on that small metal key like it was the most dangerous thing she had ever seen. The deputy looked from her face to mine. "Sir, what's so important about that key?" I slipped it back into my pocket. "That key opens a room nobody knows about. My grandfather built it after someone tried stealing cattle records back in the 1970s. Every land deed, every tax record, every survey, every security backup is stored there." Karen quickly interrupted. "He's making stories. Arrest him before he destroys evidence." Destroy evidence. Those words caught everyone's attention. The deputy slowly turned toward her. How do you know there's evidence?" She opened her mouth, then stopped. For a second, nobody spoke. I could almost hear the wind outside pushing against the old oak trees. Then another SUV came racing through my front gate. It wasn't mine. A middle-aged ranch hand jumped out before the vehicle fully stopped. "Boss," he shouted. "Someone broke into the old barn. We found fresh footprints and a broken lock on the back door." Karen looked down. One HOA board member quietly stepped away from her. Another whispered, "You told us nobody would find out." I heard it. So did one deputy. "What did you just say?" the deputy asked. The board member immediately shook his head. I didn't say anything." But the damage was already done. I asked the deputies to follow me to the barn. Karen suddenly stepped in front of them. "That's private property. Nobody should go there." The deputy gave her a confused look. "I thought you said this wasn't his land." She couldn't answer. Her own lie had trapped her. We drove across the ranch. The closer we got to the barn, the more nervous Karen became. She kept checking her phone. No signal. No messages. Almost like she was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. When we reached the barn, the broken side door was hanging open. Inside, boxes had been pulled apart. Old maps were scattered across the floor. But nothing valuable had been taken. That didn't make sense. A thief doesn't break into a locked room just to leave everything behind. Then I noticed something much stranger. One filing cabinet was still locked, but fresh fingerprints covered the dusty handle. Whoever came here wasn't looking for money. They were searching for one specific file. I unlocked the hidden room beneath the floor. The deputies switched on their flashlights. Shelves filled with sealed boxes stretched across the walls. Every box had dates, property records, tax files, survey maps. Karen stopped breathing for a moment. Then her phone suddenly buzzed. She looked at the screen. Her face lost all color. She tried to hide it. She was too late. The deputy reached out. Don't lock your phone. She held it tighter. I don't have to show you anything. The deputy calmly replied, maybe not. But if that message is connected to this break-in, a warrant will solve that problem. Karen slowly lowered her hand. At that exact moment, I opened the oldest steel box in the room. Right on top was a thick folder with one name written across the front in black letters. HOA Financial Transfers. I hadn't opened that box in nearly 12 years, and I had no idea that what was inside would expose a fraud worth millions. I placed the folder on the dusty table without opening it right away. Karen suddenly took one step forward. You can't touch those papers, she said. I looked at her. They're inside my family storage room, on my land. Why are you worried about papers you've never seen? She had no answer. The deputy carefully opened the folder. The first page looked normal. Property maps, survey notes, old tax receipts. Then he turned another page. His eyebrows came together. What is this? I leaned closer. Several pages showed money moving between different bank accounts. Every payment was marked as a road improvement fund. The problem was simple. There were no roads. Not on my ranch. Not anywhere near this side of the county. Karen quickly laughed. Those records are fake. The deputy didn't react. Instead, he picked up another page. Then another. Every page showed the same thing. Money kept leaving the HOA account, but every payment ended at companies with different names. One deputy quietly asked, "Does anyone know these businesses?" I did, because I had seen one of those names years ago. It belonged to a small construction company that had shut down almost 10 years earlier. Yet according to these records, it was still receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars. That wasn't possible, unless someone was using dead companies to hide money. The room became silent. Then my ranch hand spoke from the doorway. "Boss, there's something else." He held up a black backpack. I found this behind the barn. Nobody had seen it before. The deputy carefully opened it. Inside were gloves, a flashlight, bolt cutters, and a laptop. Karen's breathing became faster. One HOA board member suddenly backed away from her. I swear, she never told us about any laptop. Karen spun around. "Be quiet." Too late. The deputy opened the computer. It didn't even have a password. Almost like whoever owned it thought they would come back in a few minutes. The screen lit up. A spreadsheet filled the display. Rows and rows of payments, account numbers, hidden transfers, and one total highlighted in green. $4,812,447.63. Nobody in the room said a word. The deputy slowly looked at Karen. "Can you explain why your HOA records match the files on this computer?" Karen shook her head. "I've never seen that laptop." Then another deputy walked over carrying something from outside. "Sir." He held up a small trail camera. It was hidden in a tree facing the barn. I smiled for the first time all day. I forgot that camera was even there. The deputy removed the memory card. If this camera was working. "It was," I replied. He inserted the card into the laptop. A video appeared on the screen. The timestamp showed. Yesterday night. Everyone leaned closer. The first person walking toward the barn. was Karen. But she wasn't alone. And when the second person stepped into the light, even the deputies looked shocked. The room went completely quiet. The deputy paused the video for a second. "Zoom in," he said. Another deputy enlarged the picture. Karen was easy to recognize. The second person wasn't. He wore a baseball cap pulled low over his face and carried 2 heavy boxes from the back of an SUV. They walked straight toward the old barn like they already knew where everything was. Karen folded her arms. "That proves nothing. The video is blurry." The deputy pressed play again. The man stopped beside the hidden door under the barn floor. He looked at Karen and asked, "Are you sure the old rancher never comes down here?" Karen answered without hesitation. "He doesn't even remember this room exists. Once we find the land files, everything will be ours." Nobody in the room moved. Karen slowly realized what she had just said. That's not what I meant." But the recording kept playing. The man laughed. "After today, nobody will question where the 4.8 million went." Karen smiled. "Exactly. They'll think it was spent on new roads and flood protection." The deputy immediately paused the video again. He turned toward Karen. "So, 5 minutes ago you said you'd never seen this laptop. Now you're on camera talking about the same money that's inside it." Karen looked around for help. None of the HOA board members would even look at her. One of them quietly sat down and covered his face. "I didn't know she was stealing," he whispered. "She told us everything had been approved." Karen shouted at him, "Stop talking." Another board member pointed toward her. "She made us sign blank papers. She said they were meeting notes." The deputy wrote that down. Then my ranch hand walked back inside carrying something wrapped in an old blanket. "Boss, I found this buried behind the barn." He placed it on the table. Inside was a weatherproof metal lockbox. The deputy opened it carefully. Everyone leaned closer. There were USB drives, bank statements, property maps, and a notebook filled with handwritten names. Every name had a dollar amount beside it. Some had checks beside them. Some had question marks. Then I saw one name that made my heart stop. It was my late father's name. Next to it were the words, "Owner refuses to sell. Remove obstacle." I grabbed the notebook. "What does this mean?" Karen didn't answer. She couldn't. Her face had gone pale. One deputy gently took the notebook from my hands. This just became much bigger than HOA fraud. Another deputy's radio suddenly came to life. "Unit 12. We've confirmed something. The construction companies listed in those records have been closed for years. They're ghost companies." The deputy looked back at us. "So someone has been sending HOA money to businesses that don't even exist." Then another message came over the radio. "One more thing." The deputy turned up the volume. "The name of the person who created every one of those ghost companies has just come back from the state database." He listened for 3 more seconds, then looked directly at Karen. His expression changed completely. "You are under arrest." Karen smiled, not because she thought she would escape, but because she quietly said one sentence that froze every person in that barn. "You still haven't figured out who the real boss and the story